Let's talk about our experiences making beer on the channel. So first off, this is our raspberry beer, and it's quite good.
It's very nice. And not only that, but it gives us an excuse to use some of our beautiful glassware, complimentary of North Mountain Supply.
I mean, look at this.
They have a great selection of glassware. So if you're looking for a particular glass to be, I think they call these chimneys. I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm so sorry.
I have no idea. I'm probably drinking this beer in the wrong kind of glass anyway.
So many different styles, mugs, glasses, stemmed, unstemmed, handled, you name it, they got it.
Okay, we're starting to sound like an ad, and we don't really mean to do that. But you can get them in the links in the description below. But our experience with beer
is actually long and varied.
Now, I was never a beer drinker, though, and neither were you.
Right.
So many years ago, I drank Coors Light. Okay, that was it.
Well,
that was many years ago.
That was his first mistake, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then I didn't drink beer for like 20 years. Wasn't my thing.
But actually, on the channel, one of our oldest videos
is me reviewing a beer kit.
Brian's sitting in the backyard drinking some beer that he brewed.
Yep. Filmed on an iPad, and I think I had AirPod. Earbuds in for a microphone.
I don't know.
I think. I don't know. It might have just been right on
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I'll just say that.
But that leads us to our first experience homebrewing beer, and that was through a kit.
Yep. I don't even remember which kit that was, but it was not very good instructions, and they had...
I think it was a porter. Or a brown ale. It was...
I don't remember. The beer itself tasted fine. The instructions for the kit were
they were kind of lacking.
Great. And they made it unclear. And I thought, as a beginner, this isn't cool. And what's really interesting is that was kind of one of our first forays into beer making at all. So actually, I think that was our first.
Yeah.
So not knowing much about beer and still learning about wine and mead making at the time, it was... intimidating for us. And it really got me thinking about how do people actually do this if you just buy a kit?
It also got us really frustrated because, if I remember correctly, it was referring to directions that were included.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
it was saying,
follow these directions.
It gave like very basic instructions, and they were referring to other instructions that weren't in the box. They weren't there. I couldn't find them on their website. Nothing. So it was very confusing. And that may have actually helped shape some of the ways that we do our videos.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kind of funny how one little experience can shape things 6.5 years later. We're still kind of...
And even now, I feel like we're constantly kind of checking ourselves to say, did we not explain that well enough? Mm-hmm. Did we gloss that over too much, assuming perhaps things we shouldn't assume?
It's a fine line between... assuming that every single person coming in has never brewed before and keeping people who have brewed before interested. And we're always trying to balance that with, we do silly things. I mean, let's be honest. We're kind of silly people, even when we haven't been drinking.
Yeah.
So we do things that are funny, but a lot of the time it's done for repetition's sake so that it sticks in your brain. Like you remember turbos.
If I just say, don't forget to sanitize your equipment.
It does not have the same effect as saying...
But if I'm, the red bucket of sanitization!
Big difference. And I know it irritates some people. I hear about it all the time. Yeah. But what's funny is for every person that says they hate it, there's 20 that say they love it. So we keep doing it because it's entertaining. It's funny.
It sticks in here.
And if it really bothers you, I'm very sorry. But if that bothers you, how can you possibly watch our show? Yeah. I just got to say that, We're kind of nuts.
We are. And we are nuts on purpose, which is what we were trying to convey there.
I like to think nuts with a purpose.
Nuts with a purpose. There you go. I can drink to that. Cheers.
By the way, if you watch the raspberry beer, you notice that I changed the spigot on the top of this. Seems to work a little bit better than the picnic tap. There was more head. We did pictures for the thumbnail beforehand, so the head went down a little bit, but it is holding head quite nicely.
Yeah, it did a great job.
It just sounds weird to use the word head that much.
Well, we're talking about beer. Speaking of beer, after our kit experience,
I decided to go into all grain.
We went to all grain.
Immediately from a crappy kit to all grain.
which is interesting. And that's, I think, a beautiful illustration of how we approach things. It's we stick a tiptoe in there, and then we just dive straight in.
And then jump in.
Boom.
Yeah.
But
I think one of the first beers we made was my porter, which is still like one of the best recipes we have for beer.
And we did the peanut butter porter.
Oh, yeah.
Which was our version of Sweet Baby Jesus.
And we did a review.
And we actually liked ours better.
We liked ours better. It was actually better.
Yeah. And that's another interesting thing that I've seen played out with our beer attempts is that we don't replicate a specific style.
Yeah, we rarely do that. We don't like to clone things.
One of the reasons being is that it can be highly regimented, and this is based on the German beer brewing laws, and there's reasons for that, and I completely appreciate that, and I think those are important within the commercial.
Yeah. So it's almost not fair to try to replicate it at home.
But
why not make your own version?
But for us, we don't want to have to be limited by those restrictions and regulations. So that's why we try very hard to stay away with, I am going to be making a Hefeweizen or whatever.
We get that all the time. Somebody says, oh, can you make this exact beer that I had at this one place, one time, 15 years ago, very specific beer? I'm like, probably not, because I've never had it. And we're not really beer experts at all.
No.
We just know what we like. And that's different. In beer, we just know what we like.
And so that's what we do. We really liked the Sweet Baby Jesus. So we're like, okay, that's a dark peanut butter beer. Let's just make a dark peanut butter beer and see how we do. And we did great. So yes. But we're not categorizing it beyond that.
Right.
It's more of a flavor combination characterization rather than a specific beer type.
Like I like Guinness. So my porter was kind of my version of making Guinness at home, so I didn't have to spend $12 for a six-pack. That's really all it was.
And if you compare it with Guinness, does it taste just like Guinness? No, it doesn't. No. But for us,
had enough similarity.
It brings the Guinness-like qualities to the table, and
to
for
an
us,
expert,
that was good.
No, they'd be like, nope, this is nothing like Guinness, and that's fine.
And that brings us up to our most current experiment with beer, and that's this lovely creation,
which was to kind of replicate the Lindemann's Lambic Framboise.
Which we knew.
That was the inspiration.
Going in.
There's no way.
Not going to happen.
First, we're not in Belgium. Can't make a Lambic. We could make a wild ferment, but we can't make a Lambic. Lambic is actually like people have been telling me a little bit more as time has progressed too, that a Lambic is actually a sour wild ferment. Mm-hmm. Well, this ended up being a little bit of a sour because there was a Brettanomyces in it. We killed that off with pasteurization, though.
Right.
And it is not a wild yeast fermentation because we did actually use yeast to create this. Yep. But it did end up with a little bit of the properties of a lambic.
Right. So that was our happy accident with this, is that we went in knowing we're not going to make the thing we want to make.
Expecting that we weren't going to be able to make it.
And then to accidentally get as close as we did to it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This is probably only 50% there.
But flavor-wise,
it's got a nice raspberry flavor and a good beer flavor.
It's fantastic, and I'm so pleased. And that is part of
I love the chaos that video.
My reasoning for creating this video for you is to let you know what our experience has been throughout City Steading.
Well, let me back this up. This was supposed to be a cider talk.
We're still doing the cider talk.
Oh, we are?
But
separately.
Yeah.
But we had a whole gallon of this beer. And I was like, I really don't want that to go bad.
As you can tell, this is a heavily scripted video.
Yeah, these are not scripted. These are just us talking about various things. Just trying to think of it more like a behind the scenes of all the stuff that we do and our thought processes and explaining like how we achieved where we got and where we started and that sort of thing. So that gives you kind of an idea of where we started with beer. Along the way, we haven't drastically improved it. I mean, we've actually gone more to extracts and things like that.
Right. And so back to the original of our experience, we started off with the kit and we were underwhelmed. Then we went...
Okay, we were underwhelmed with the making of it, but not with the drinking of it.
Right.
Drinking of it was actually quite nice.
Right.
Pretty decent.
We accidentally did a good job, so yay.
Yeah.
Then we went full grain mash with different we started stockpiling different grain types and malts, and
then we took so long in between making beer that they went bad.
they got buggy because Florida,
We had to toss them out.
you got to use that stuff. So if you are in a warmer climate like we are, and you plan on making a
Keep 'em
beer,
airtight.
just buy what you need to
Yeah.
make. Don't
We kept
buy
buying and buying and
excess thinking, oh, someday, because if that someday doesn't come,
If you don't do it within a month or two,
you're going to end up throwing away lots of product. And if you're like us that hates throwing stuff away, being wasteful is going to make you sad. So don't be sad. So then after all grain, we went into
liquid extract.
brew in a bag.
Well, brew in a bag. See, okay. Somebody tell me what the real difference is. I understand that brew in a bag is using grains and it's in a bag. But would that not still be considered a type of all grain? Or yeah, because I've seen people say brew in a bag is like cheating all grain. I'm like, but it is all grain. You're still using grains.
Right.
This is where I'm confused on that.
But I just wanted to do that because I know that there are some beer people that are much more knowledgeable than us that are going to say they're different things. And so I wanted to acknowledge
Tell me what the difference is.
did
I want to know.
both types. Then from there, we went to the liquid malt extract, I believe.
Yep.
And we really enjoyed that.
I'm not good at pouring from it.
We really enjoyed that, but the volume of the liquid malt was much more than our typical.
Yeah, it's made to make 5 gallons.
Right.
And we made 1
and we
gallon.
made 1 gallon. And so
Thinking, because I read somewhere or was told, that it shouldn't spoil because it's so concentrated like honey.
Nope.
That's not true.
it spoiled. So
It molded. So
that had
got
to be
shut.
checked.
We lost 80% of that because we only used enough to make 1 gallon.
So then
And that kind of turned us off of beer for a while.
it did. And we were looking at our numbers because, this is, we're making these videos not just for our own self-pleasure. We're making these videos to try to fill your need as a viewer. What are you
Trying
interested
to inspire
in?
people to watch.
What information do you want? And so we were seeing that the view numbers on our beer videos weren't as high as, say, on our wines, our meads, and our ciders. So we kind of laid off thinking people really weren't interested in our beer.
And a lot of people started asking for beer recipes.
And then a lot of people started asking for beer recipes. And we're like, but why would you want that when nobody's watching? And then we reassessed our numbers and we realized
Beer wasn't that bad. They took
that
long.
it took longer for the numbers to build up. So people were still watching, but they were watching months, even years after we made the initial
when we would
video.
make a mead video, it would get a lot of views right away and then drop off pretty quick, which that's typical on YouTube.
Yeah.
A beer video wouldn't get as many views at first, but over time would trickle in and basically equal the mead videos.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting how I think there's still a different audience.
Yep.
But by using, well, there's more to it, but by getting into simpler beers, I think we actually kind of made that crossover point.
Right. So then after the liquid malt extract scenario, we went to the dry malt and we found out that we could purchase just enough
A pound at a time.
right in the bag, pre-measured, ready to go. No boiling required except for hop additions if you didn't want to dry hop. And that seemed to be the perfect scenario for us because we could make a really simple beer in a 1 gallon volume without any wastage.
Right.
And we could buy, there's tons of different
Well,
dry
in the
malts.
dry malt, there's like 4 or 5. There's not a lot. There's like blonde, there's the light, and then there's the
golden
dark.
light, there's dark, there's chocolate, there's a lot more.
Okay. You can also still add adjuncts, though.
Right.
You were probably getting to that.
Yes. And so through other experimentations with mead, we have been starting to utilize extracts. And so we found through this, we added fresh raspberries initially, and then to bump up the raspberry notes at the end, we added raspberry extract.
I think it added depth, too.
And there are so many different extracts that you can purchase or make. We have videos on making your own extract if that's what you're interested in. That you
do
can
a berry extract.
that you can tweak the flavors at the end to dial it in exactly where you want. And it just it gives a lot of control and a lot of creative freedom at the same time. And that's really exciting. So because our little Chaos Monkey here, the raspberry beer, turned out so fantastic.
I mean, I'm on my second whatever size glass this is.
I-
We just started filming.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the world of beer.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a lot of possibilities.
I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. But
Well, I was always just dark beer. Like once we started making beer again, I was just like, I just want dark beer. Like when we were still wedding photographers and doing this, we would go like to this one place after weddings because they were open really late. And they always had like a list of beers, all these craft beers. And I almost always got a dark beer. You got a lot of ciders, and you got a sour cider once that you really didn't like, which started us on the idea that we don't like sours, because I tried it and I said, nope, I don't like that either. But all the dark beers that I would try, they were always like chocolatey or peanut buttery or something along those lines, or coffee flavored beers, stuff like that. That was kind of like my wheelhouse for beer. But we tried the Lindemans once and was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That is good. They have other flavors too, but the framboise seems to be the best one.
Yeah.
They have a cherry one as well. There's another name for that too. There's a name for a cherry beer. Somebody will tell me, because somebody asked me to make one. I was like, isn't that just a cherry lambic?
that's basically the categories of the different ingredients and styles that we did.
Right.
I mean,
now we're starting to mix things. Like we made a braggot, which is a mead beer combo.
Right.
Somebody asked the other day, could you take malt extract, honey, maple syrup, and apple juice and make a mixture? And I'm like, well,
that's a lot of
Sure.
fermentable sugars.
I mean, we did maple syrup,
The acetylcycline.
Acer methacicylglycin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a combination of different kinds of meads with maple syrup
This
and
would be
apple
with
juice.
Beer thrown in.
Yeah, this would be with malt thrown in. So I don't see why not. I mean, people have asked, can you use it to sweeten? And I've never tried that, but I don't see why not. It is literally just like liquid malt extract. If you taste it, it's malt syrup is what it really is. It'll ferment because it's kind of like honey almost.
Yeah.
So
It's a concentrated fermentable sugars from.
yeah, so even the dry stuff, sure.
Yeah.
It's a little, see, varying reports on this. It seems to be slightly less sugars per pound than like regular sugar. And I would think it's a lot more expensive than using regular sugar, but it might add a malty flavor to things. So we might need to try that. And even without the hops, make like a higher, I like this idea, a mead that has malt extract used for some of the sugars, not all the sugars. Keep it a mead. So we make something like 12% or so, 13% that has like 60-40, maybe 40% comes from malt and 60% comes from mead. Because that way, if we don't carbonate it, we don't hop it, we can sweeten it to taste it. That might be really, really awesome. I like that idea.
Yeah. Yep.
Just got it, because the malt is going to add a natural sweetness to it already because there's non-fermentable sugars in there. But it also adds some nutrient value for the yeast, because most beers don't really need much yeast nutrient, if any at all, because it's in there. But also the tannic aspects and things like that. That's a neat thing to play with. I kind of like that idea. It'll taste like a barley wine.
Yep.
A honey-flavored barley wine. I like that concept.
Speaking of braggots, we have a braggot coming out in the near future that
We're still working on it.
we're still working on it. We're really hopeful because it was
Hopefully we're bottling it today for
it was a joint kind of brainstorm thing between us and you, our viewers.
Yeah. And our VIPs. We asked some questions.
Yeah. So that'll be cool. I hope it comes out really well.
Yeah, today is the first time that we're actually going to taste it, I think.
Yeah. So knock on simulated wood.
Yeah.
It's
But that's neat. And that's our second braggot. The first braggot actually came out really nice too. I think braggots are not my favorite thing. And here's why. Because usually you don't sweeten them. Okay? To me, mead needs to be sweeter. I like my mead sweet. So when you mix the mead with the beer, it lessens the residual sweetness.
I also think there's a double bittering because if
Yep.
you hop the beer aspect
Yep.
of the braggot, and then you have that
tiny little
bitter fermented honey.
especially dry. I'm wondering
aftertaste.
maybe I can make a braggot that isn't hopped. I might want to try that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of like my barley wine mead that I just described. I'm thinking something a little lower that isn't hopped. Might be interesting to try. We could also dry hop if we just wanted the aromas. See, there's so many ways to go with beer, and this is what's cool about it. By the way, something I want to talk about. Somebody said they've never thought to do the Farmhouse Ale style like we do. Actually, let me talk about the Farmhouse Ale style, because it's been glossed over in a bunch of videos, but we've never actually talked about it. Derica mentioned you don't have to boil the beer. Well, it's true. You don't have to boil beer at all anymore, even all grain. I know a lot of people are going to be really mad at me for making that statement, but there are many places in Europe that the traditional way that they made the beer, and some still do it today, usually it's very small, like community-driven, one household-driven kind of thing, is called a farmhouse ale. What they do is they actually take the hops and put it in water and boil it separately. Usually not even as long. I mean, you can boil them just as long. And they still do the additions because the longer you boil hops, the more bitter it becomes. So it depends on your bittering and how much you want of each one, how many additions you do, and when. But the real trick is they do the extraction and conversion of the grains into sugars, into the malt, but they don't actually boil the wort once that's done. It's believed... Okay, the boiling of wort happened eons ago because sometimes water wasn't as good. Sometimes they weren't getting as much out of the grains as they thought they might, so they boiled it to concentrate it, and it did sanitize along the way, so even if the water wasn't so good... Yeah, I think
part of it was the quality of the grains themselves, not necessarily the water.
Right, it's quality of the grains and quality of the water. So combine those two things together, boil the heck out of something, you just killed everything. So sure, it's going to be great. And it did reduce infections as well. But another thing is people thought that the bubbling of the boiling gave carbonation to the beer at the end. So that was another...
We've come a long way, baby.
So yeah. Now, I also want to point something out. Everybody says, oh, water was horrible back then. Okay. There was clean water. There was also polluted water, but there was clean water. If there wasn't, people would have died because you cannot just... Yeah, you want more. Because you can't just live on alcohol alone and wine alone. You can't. No matter how much you might want to, you really can't. It's not a good idea. Okay, getting better with the pours. I have this set to 5 PSI. Because somebody told me between 5 and 10. I mean, that's about
Look
perfect.
At that.
That's beautiful.
Look at that.
Seems like the first pour is no good. And after that, they get better.
It's so pretty. Now I don't want to drink it.
Just drink it.
I'll drink
it. It's okay.
Don't worry, I'll drink it.
So... The idea that water was always bad, that's just bad idea. What are you doing? The Vanna White thing over there for your beer?
Yes.
Okay.
I love this glass. I love this beer.
It is a nice glass. That glass actually does work really nice for beer. So that concept...
But it's a low stem. It's less likelihood that Derek is going to spaz and knock it all over the place.
See, people say that I interrupt her all the time.
We
interrupt each other.
It's me.
We interrupt each other constantly. Just, I can't edit myself out when I interrupt. So it looks like I do it more than she does. But in reality, it's pretty equal. It happens often.
All things equal in this household.
Yeah, although I'll be honest, I probably step on her more than she steps on me. But anyway, so the Farmhouse Ale style, getting back to that, they boil the hops separately, and then you just extract the grains and all that kind of thing, and then they add that to the wort, and then they ferment it, and it works just fine. That's the style that I have adopted for what we do, because especially with extracts, there is no reason to boil it other than to dissolve the solids. But, as we've shown, even if you don't dissolve them all, the yeast are going to get to it. So it's not super critical, except for getting your original starting gravity. That's the only real reason. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we're starting to get a little more loose with the estimations because here's the problem. We have had many people that I try to dissuade this behavior, but we get people that say, oh, my reading was this and my second reading was this. So that makes my ABV 11.56257. And I'm like, you can't be that precise about it. And they get concerned if they're like a quarter of a point off. And I'm like, oh, you can't.
All right. So I'm going to interrupt. I'm just party break right here. And I can understand where they're coming from because they are believing in the math. And sure, the math is math. They're right on that. But the math is not the problem. The problem is your instruments that you're using to get the original numbers to create that math. Because they are...
Not even just that.
They are limited in their... help me out with words.
Specificity and accuracy.
Right. And beyond that, you are a person and you're like, okay...
Right. So... The first thing is you have a hydrometer that you're taking a reading. See, I just stepped on her. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're a team.
You have a hydrometer that you're taking a reading that only goes to 2 points. So its accuracy is 0.002, right? So you have to be able to read that accurately, which to me, I'm going to say, once you get past a certain age, are you within a point or two of it? Sure. That's as close as you're probably ever going to get. But to judge that to be so perfectly accurate is not really
And
good.
beyond that, a liquid is not a straight line. Those of you that are familiar with dealing with liquids and readings understand the curvature.
But now you've taken two of those
foam
readings.
in the way, and there's all that.
Yeah, right.
So you can only
Be as accurate
even as perfect as you are at understanding how to read, as accurate as that measurement is.
Right.
So the math might have a gajillion
based off of that.
decimals after it, but it's only going to be as accurate as the decimals that are available in your original reading.
Right. That's the point. But it's more than that. Let me explain. Because you have the first reading that could be off, then you have a second reading that could be off too. And then you're calculating those two readings. But those readings only go to so many places. You can't go further than that number of places for decimals and be accurate. Plus, the formulas used are all estimations too, because there's various amounts of different alcohols and solutions and stuff and everything in there. So even that is an estimation.
Right.
So anything more than a point or two, like a literal 1 percentage point or 2 percentage points, is really just estimating. Like if I say this beer is 5%, it could be anywhere from 4 to 6. And I'm okay with that because, as I've said a million times, if you hand someone something, they say, I'm not drinking that, it's only 4%. Don't give them any more. I mean, really, if somebody's going to be that petty about it, we see this with wines all the time.
And I was just trying to explain it from the Derica point of view, because the Derica point of view is math semi-illiterate. Math and I, numbers and I are not friends. But I can understand the disconnect between the math
right.
and the measurement itself. And
because people expect the math to make it right.
When Brian, because Brian understands all that stuff, it's just he doesn't. I feel like sometimes you have a problem relating to a person.
That's possible, yeah.
That is just like, I did the math, and so
but the math is based off of flawed readings.
But that's not their understanding. Their understanding is they did the math, and they're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You did the math. The math is correct. The math is not the problem. The problem is how that math equates with the readings you took in the first place and their correlation.
The math itself, because it's still just a formula based off of supposed numbers and assumed numbers that aren't always the same. And as we know, as you go higher up in ABV, the amount of ethanol is higher. Therefore, the numbers would be more and more skewed. That's why we use 135 as our coefficient rather than 131.25. So there's multiple things
based on the ABV, blah, blah, blah. See, there's so many variables.
Right. So to say I used your math and I got this 550, I mean, I've seen some people, one guy did like 8 digits. Yeah, and I'm like,
those are immaterial. Those don't work.
But he was trying to improve it by like 0.002% or something. I'm like, who cares? Can you even tell a difference? 0.002%. I mean, think about that. Not 0.2, 0.002%.
And they have that right to try to get that.
Well, I tried really hard to be nice and explain to him that there's no difference. You're not going to...
And if this conversation right here doesn't prove to you that we have two very separate mindsets on how this is done, then I don't know what will. Neither one of us are yes men.
No.
We are very obstinate.
I'm much more of the numbers person than you are.
Yeah, no, I agree to that.
I mean, I look around the world and, all right, I'm a synesthete because I don't see, like, some of my senses are mixed. That's the easiest way to say it.
Numbers are colors.
Yeah, numbers and volumes come out as colors and shapes. But it's never the same twice. I just instinctively know what it is. It's really, really weird.
But if you get in a car and you need to know where to go, don't ask him.
Yeah, I suck at directions. I'm horrible. If somebody starts reading off directions, like, go 3 blocks, turn left, and then go a half mile and go this way. I'm like, wait a minute. So I go straight? I'm horrible at that.
We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And
but that's why
everybody's
the formulas and the volumes and stuff, I can usually calculate those pretty closely.
Yeah.
Because I don't see numbers the way most people do, and definitely different than she sees numbers.
Numbers are pink elephant, zebra, tiger. I don't know. What?
Oh, God. Oh my God. We've tried to talk about it too, and it never, it doesn't work.
My childhood trying to pass math classes and having my father, who is literally
Really a rocket
scientist, tried to help me. It was bad times.
Whereas my problem in most classes in math was show your work. Why? Did I get it right? Yes, but show your work. Okay. I looked at the formula and said this. That's my work.
Pre-visualization.
Yep. Saw past the formula into the numbers themselves, then calculate. Yeah, but we've gone.
To beer.
Yeah, we've got away from beer. Although if you watch the Yahoo Serious movie where he was trying to make bubbly beer, there's a lot of math in that. So I'm going with that.
All right, that's a story.
I forget the name of the movie.
You can do it.
It was funny years ago.
So besides the various malt types that we've used and the styles of brewing, we've gone off the rails, as is our way. So Shandy, where we combined beer and lemonade.
And we did it wrong.
And
Because apparently lemonade in
delicious.
England is not lemonade.
It's like
Sprite
or something.
It's what Americans would call Sprite or 7-Up. Which, to me, that sounds interesting as well. So we made a lemon beer, really. It was good.
Fantastic.
No problems with
And
that.
there's still 2 left in our refrigerator, and I'm trying really hard not to drink them.
Wow, it was really low ABV.
I know, but...
By the way, I just want to say something. This is the first alcohol that I have had since last Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
We're trying to, cut back a little bit. Trying to be better about things. But, yeah, literally, this is the first alcohol we've had. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That's our little mini PSA. Drink responsibly, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. Just because you're brewing it doesn't mean you drink it all at once.
Well, today I am.
Except for today.
Well, that's what these are about. This is like a drink with us and let's talk about some stuff.
Right.
Kind of thing,
So I'm trying to think of the the braggots. Those were another beer variant, and that's the bridging of beer and mead. We also did Groots.
Oh, Groot. We need to do another Groot.
That's old style pre-hops beer.
Yeah.
Where they used herbs as the bittering agent rather than just hops.
I think we screwed up our first Groot. I didn't like it. And we did a chai Groot once that I didn't like either. We need to do just a basic Groot.
There it is.
Fruit Groot. What are you doing?
So I still have our bottle.
If you hold it still, I might be able to zoom the camera into it.
Groot. Am I turning it right there? Maybe that's better. So this is a example of, yes, I actually do labels occasionally back in the day that weren't.
And no, that's not just a copied picture of Groot. That's actually like 4 pictures that she morphed together.
I did so much because I'm just like, I do not want to be sued by Disney or anybody else.
Yeah, well, you're still using Groot's name, so.
Yeah, and that's why we're not selling it.
Oh, yeah, we don't sell it.
That and that we're not licensed to sell it.
We get asked that all the time. How can I buy some of your stuff?
You can't.
You can't. We teach you how to make it on purpose.
And we have researched in depth on how to become a brewery /
We thought about it.
distribution.
We even had partners at one time.
Yeah. The problem is that you can't just get a single license to cover all aspects
Wine has
of
a
it.
license, beer and cider have a license, and mead has a license. I think there's 3.
And then you need a separate property, and then you need to be licensed to make it.
Essentially,
and then you have another license to distribute it, and it's just it's a nightmare. And in our particular area, it's like a lottery to even get the license because they only have so many. And we
can get the license to create. We can't get the license to sell.
Right.
Not necessarily.
So
it's kind of crazy, and that's why we haven't done it. It is something we've thought about, and, it's nice as someday, but I don't think that someday is going to come. No. I am actually quite comfortable in the lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to. I like making videos, and I like teaching.
And because of this platform, we have been afforded some other opportunities that help fulfill those desires to create beyond that.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I could be stuck in the back room of a meadery all day. I think that would bother me.
But we've been lucky enough to become not only partners, but good friends with people who do that sort of thing and are properly licensed. And so we're going to further that friendship and that collaboration.
Yeah, there's something coming from Two Warriors Meadery. I don't want to spill the beans or anything, but there's something coming. But that's mead, not beer.
But there's other things in the works, and we're really excited about it, and we're really grateful that we've been able to make these connections with different people and like-minded individuals, because that not only helps the brewing community in large, but it directly gives us a conduit to our viewers to help you fulfill. Maybe there's something that you really wanted to experience or to create, but there was something missing. And if you can give us that information, now we have other people that we can talk with to perhaps fulfill that need that they, from their point of view and their business, weren't aware was even there. And that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, never really thought about it that way. That makes sense.
The people that we're working with right now and how open they are.
We have a lot of sources for information.
Yep.
So every once in a while, somebody will ask a question that, I mean, not every once in a while. Often people ask a question I just don't know the answer to offhand. I do a cursory search, but then I'll start asking people who actually work with these things. And that's awesome, because that's something that wouldn't have happened without the channel. We would not have had those opportunities or that information come to us.
Yeah.
And, we're still very much into keeping it simple, keeping it more down to earth and approachable, because that's the whole point of our channel at all, is not to be fancified about stuff. We're not looking to make fancy things. We're looking to make good stuff. And our main goal, the main thing, is we want the average person or anybody to be able to say, I made this. That's really the ultimate goal of our show, is I made this, share it with your family and friends, and they all love it, or like it at least, and you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
That's the goal of our show, is to make it approachable and accessible to anybody, because the stuff that we teach was done in the home 100 years ago. People did it at home. Everybody did. And then somewhere along the way, it became this, oh, no, you can't do that at home. It's dangerous. Dangerous? No, it's not. It's not dangerous at all. It's no more dangerous than cooking. Actually, cooking is more dangerous than homebrew.
Yeah.
You're more likely to get sick from badly prepared food than from badly prepared homebrew, unless you do something stupid with the homebrew, which don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, don't. I think we have talked
about everything but beer.
Everything but beer, and hopefully enough about beer to make this worthy to have.
I'm going to probably call this beer and everything but beer. I think that's a great title for this Beer Talk.
If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, particularly if it pertains to beer, please let us know in the comments below.
Or if there is something you'd like to see us just pour a pint and talk about, let us know, because that's a video style that I'm really interested in. I like giving a little behind the scenes and more information. These are talks that you can't give this information in a video.
Right.
And if we did, it'd get lost among the 700 videos on our channel. So being able to put it into one little talk, this is now at 39 minutes.
Oh, golly.
I'm going to edit it down a little bit. But putting it into one video that you can search for and find just that information, I think that's a really neat idea. It's something we're looking to do a little bit more, kind of to give a way that you can search our channel for specific topics and find those topics and find something that we talked about. And it's not just informative. Hopefully it's slightly entertaining as well. We tend to be
We've implemented
sort of
these topic-specific conversations through our VIP club. That's a paid membership. And certain tiers are available to a group Zoom with us included and many of our admins if they can make it, where we talk about specific topics and we discuss them in depth.
Let me explain what she's talking about. Once a month, we have what's called a Zoom Hangout. And the Backroom, Bejesus, and Plaid memberships all have access to this. And what it literally is a Zoom meeting, a Zoom Hangout, where we're all on our cameras and using microphones, all equal. Just looks like playing Hollywood Squares. You got just a bunch of people up there, and we're the Brady Bunch intro, you know? And we started introducing topics to talk about, and it's really transformed them into a really good, informative session. Don't get me wrong, there's
shenanigans.
There's CSB bingo, and usually some amount of shenanigans. I change people's names into something funny. I have muted a couple of people just because I felt like it and it just found it hysterical. Other times we just have crazy talks about all kinds of stuff, and it's just really interesting. It lets us get to know you better and lets you have kind of you instantly have our ear if you want to talk to us about something. And they've worked out really great. We've been doing them once a month for a couple of years now.
Yeah. And so these brew talks are kind of a glimpse into what that might be if you were to join
Except
the
it's
VIP.
very one-sided because you're not talking back from the camera. So all we have is the comment section. So if you have something that you want to know, ask away. Are we done?
We're done.
I think we're done. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.